Good morning. Welcome everyone to our May Lunch and Learn. I'm Carol Battle and I manage the statewide wellness program through the Office of State Human Resources. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm really excited about this topic. As we continue to grow our worksite wellness program, expanding, as you know, from the emotional wellness and into financial wellness as well. As you hopefully know, we are doing a lot more in the way of financial wellness. MetLife has been doing some webinars for us this spring on paying off student loans, as well as a really great four-session series on preparing for retirement. It's called Retire Wise, so be on the lookout for that as well. We continue to also offer virtual sessions on sensible savings, and that registration will be out soon. So look for all of those links in the upcoming NC Flex newsletter. Today's session includes both healthy eating and financial wellness. We will learn how to shop for groceries a little smarter and a little wiser. Of course, at the end of the presentation, there will be a cooking demo, which is always the highlight of each of these Lunch and Learns. As a quick reminder, everyone who's registered for this event will receive a recording of today's presentation, as well as the recipe and a link to our webpage, where we house all the past demos and invitations to upcoming webinars. We are fortunate to have back with us today Katie Godin. Katie has been a registered dietitian for 15 years. She works with Lifestyle Medical Center and focuses on helping individuals meet their health goals and improve their knowledge and relationship with food. As you know, Lifestyle Medical Center is an in-network nutrition counseling service. For those of you enrolled in the state health plan, virtual and in-person visits are covered at 100% for in-network providers. We have dietitians across the state, so if you're interested in meeting with one, it's easy to find a dietitian near you by logging into your state health plan portal. That link is on the cover slide, so if you want to find a dietitian, that's a great place to start. For today, if you have questions during the presentation, please use the chat box and we'll be answering those with Katie during the cooking demo. A special thank you to the NC Flex team members who will be assisting with answering your questions as well in the chat. We have Amy Tyndall, Diane Griffiths, April Petaway, and Linda Forsberg. So thank you for being here with us today. We've also saved a few minutes at the end of the event for questions and answers as well. So let's welcome Katie now and learn more about navigating the grocery store and how to shop smarter, save more. Katie?
Hey, thank you, Carol. It's good to be back. And so yes, what we'll do is kind of get started here with some tips on navigating the grocery store, how to shop smarter. Both we're going to talk about kind of the two parts here, the planning part that kind of is before the actual, going to the store. And then we're going to talk about once we're in the store, now what? So it should be a lot of good information. Maybe you've heard before, but a helpful reminder for all of this stuff is always a good idea. All right. And Carol did a great job of kind of mentioning my services there. So yes, we always look forward to seeing new people and new faces in our office. So considering that your dietitian visits are 100% covered and that we offer virtual visits, I always think it's a plus. And there's a lot of information that we're going to go over today. And of course, I won't be able to get to every single question. But when it comes to products and food labels and, how to really get kind of to understanding the ins and outs of all of the foods in the grocery store, it's a great thing for you to do to work on with a dietitian personally on that kind of stuff. So Anyway, well, let's get started. So, the first tip that I put on here is probably the most important, in my opinion. That would be planning ahead and getting organized. I know for me personally, when I do not have a plan for myself for the week, let's say I'm coming back from vacation or sick kids over the weekend or just a really busy weekend in general, and I didn't plan to get to the grocery store like I normally would. I feel that my entire week is thrown off. And I know that other people feel that way because they tell me that. So, anyway, having a plan and getting organized is really important. So, we tend to make healthier choices. And speaking about budget, we tend to kind of be more budget friendly when we have that shopping list. I'm actually going to be sending you guys some resources today that will include 4 of our handouts, or 3 of our handouts, and one handout that I kind of found that I thought would be good. But anyway, one of them will include a grocery list that's really organized, and it's something that I like to use with patients in sessions. So I thought I would share that with you all today. So one thing that I also like to recommend is to check and see what you have. And under that is keep your refrigerator and pantry organized. So that is going to make it easier to see what you have. I can't tell you guys, like I'm just as guilty of not being organized as anyone else. So, how many jars of pasta sauce that I buy, and then I keep them tucked up top and I can't see them. And then I'm like, oh man, I already had that. So it's really a good idea to kind of just throughout kind of reorganize and kind of see where things are. I also like to keep an ongoing list of things just kind of on the counter or somewhere in the kitchen nearby that I can kind of write down as soon as I run out of something. I'll go over there and I'll kind of jot it down, especially things like condiments and pantry staples and stuff like that. And then just a reminder, dietitians are really great at helping you get organized. I think that's just one of those things that maybe you don't think about doing when you sign up for, seeing a dietitian. You always think maybe weight loss or management of chronic disease, but learning how to grocery shop and plan and get organized with food is such an important behavior to learn. So, all right, so that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is a pretty big one, budget, and considering how expensive food is now. It really is almost overwhelming to think about going to the grocery store, how expensive food costs. I hear all the time, well, healthy food just costs more. And I mean, maybe some of that is true, but I think there's certain things that are also, you maybe fall into a trap of with the unhealthy foods, which can kind of skyrocket that grocery bill, like unnecessary bargains. We walk into the grocery store, it's not on our list, but we see like a 2-for-1 special or buy 2 get 3 free or whatever the deal is. And we kind of think, oh man, I can't pass that up. That's too good of a deal. However, I really encourage people to think, how am I actually going to use this food? Is it just going to sit there and go bad? So that's something that you want to remember. Bargains are great, but at the same time, you really need to have a plan for how you're going to use those foods. And then, of course, coupons, can help. I think people are hit or miss with if they use coupons, but if you're someone who enjoys couponing, or maybe you're thinking about getting started with kind of keeping those coupons, looking for coupons online and things like that, keeping a little folder handy. There's apps and there's things that maybe you can use to kind of help with budgeting that I know people kind of might use at times. So that's always an option as well. And then, of course, prioritizing those convenience items, because I get that convenience is key. And I'm certainly a big fan of buying things that are already pre-chopped or, buying things that are pre-packaged in little individual packs because it's just a little bit easier. But I think if you're kind of starting to think about budget and you're wanting to work on budget in the grocery store, you definitely have to balance those convenience items with cost and kind of think, is it truly worth it? Is there another way around this? One quick example I usually think of are nuts. And, you can get the 100-calorie packs of nuts, which are great. And you can just stick them in your pocket, put them in your purse, keep them in the car. Nice source of healthy fats, a great snack in between. But the problem is they're more expensive. And so it'd be better to buy a bulk set of nuts, and then kind of just spend 5 minutes making little portion baggies. So I think it's just about thinking through some of that. And then, of course, remember tip number 1, planning is the best way to avoid that unnecessary spending. So when we plan, we're also working on helping keep us within lines of our budget. Okay. So we can go on to tip number 3. Perfect. Now, look, I get that in a perfect world, we would really prefer to not go to the grocery store with our kids, but that is not always the case, especially in my household. There are ways around it. I do try to plan at times where I don't have to take them, but if I do, getting the kids involved is really helpful. So for all you young families out there that, you don't have a choice, giving them a task. There are some really cute kid-friendly grocery lists with pictures on them. Maybe they can help push the cart if they're old enough. I actually saw the cutest little girl going in the grocery store the other day with her little shopping cart she brought from home. You could just tell that mom needed some, support, compliance, like she was needing some help. And I'm sure the little girl, did much better with having that grocery cart than if she were to just have to fend for herself the whole time in there. So, and another thing to think about when you get your family involved, it doesn't always have to be with the grocery shopping. It could be with the planning. It could be with, what foods are we going to have? Maybe you give your kids a task to kind of check the pantry and see what we're out of or we're running out of. The more involvement that your kids have with food in general in your home, the studies show the more compliance with food variety. So getting the whole family involved can be very helpful. All right. So we can move on to tip number 4. Whoops. There we go. Okay. So tip number 4, I'm sure you guys have heard, do not go hungry, right? But also do not recommend you go when you're rushed or when you're tired. So one thing that I work on with people is learning how to get on a regular schedule with grocery shopping. It's something that, again, like I said, people don't really prioritize. There's so many people that just kind of shop as they need to. They might go to the grocery store every other day because they forget things. So I really think it's important that you understand kind of knowing when you're going to go is really important. So I have people think about that, what's kind of your least chaotic day out of the week? Is it a weekend or is it midweek or is it in the morning or is it, in the evening? So, thinking about these things is important. And then I have people literally try to make an appointment with themselves, put it in your phone, write it on a calendar, however you do appointments and schedules for other things. Schedule your grocery trip. We tend to not prioritize that like we might a lot of other things, right? So that is kind of helps you keep that accountability, and you're more likely to stick to that time and going. And then, I just kind of threw out there going every other day, smaller trips versus one larger trip. I think there's flexibility with that. I just tell people those small, frequent trips should still be planned. It's different when you're going every day or every other day because you keep forgetting things and you're just kind of on the fly with it. So personally for myself, I go a couple times a week. I like to do a big grocery shopping trip, and then I like to do kind of a midweek check-in. But some weeks it might be more than that, and some weeks I might make do with just the one. But I think kind of thinking through your week is really important to make sure that you're kind of not leaving yourself hungry, rushed, or tired when you go. And then the other thing is online shopping. That became more of a thing once the pandemic hit. And I know prior to that, it was really useful for young families or people that just, couldn't get to the grocery store as easily. I love online shopping. I think that when I like being in a store, though, personally, I like seeing the food, but I also utilize online shopping for certain situations. For example, when I'm coming back from vacation, I always do an online shopping trip that day before I leave. I plan it for the next day. It takes me about 15 to 20 minutes, but I get it done. That way, I do not have to start my week off or my next day back into the grind of things. in a chaotic way. It really helps kind of keep things kind of rolling a little bit more smoothly because you've got lots of other things to do when you come back from vacation. If you don't have to worry about getting to a grocery store for 45 minutes, that would be ideal. All right, tip number 5. Okay, so we're kind of moving along into the grocery store now. We talked about some pre-planning tips. So which store is best? Okay, there's 1,000 grocery stores, and we cannot go to like 3 or 4 every week. There is just no time for that. So I just have people prioritize what they need that week. So, so for traditional supermarkets, of course, those are like your Food Lion, your Harris Teeter, your Publix. Studies show that we tend to go to the stores that are closest to where we live. But sometimes I tell people, think outside of the box. Is there a grocery store that's closest to where you work? Because that's a more convenient time for you to go, is right after work. So kind of thinking outside the box in different areas that you're in a lot, and what grocery stores surround that area, that could be very helpful. Luckily, there are things like discount grocery stores out there, Aldi, even Trader Joe's. There are stores out there that offer great deals on things that offer also that aren't the bulk stores. So they offer just kind of normal foods in addition to that. However, again, like, is that close to where you live? Is it meaning you're going to have to go to 2 grocery stores because Trader Joe's or Aldi doesn't carry something that your kids want from Food Lion or Harris Teeter? So again, it's prioritizing, it's thinking through things. This is something that the dietitians do in visits all the time, is help people kind of feel out what's best for them. And then you've got your health food stores like, Whole Foods, for example. I certainly do not tell people that in order to eat healthy, you have to purchase all your food at some place like Whole Foods. But it is kind of nice for people that are looking for more specialty items. Maybe if you have an allergy, like you have celiacs, or a certain special food or food items that you really don't get a lot of variety at other stores, you may find them more at health food stores. So that's kind of when I encourage people to utilize those a little bit more if they feel they can't find the things that they need in other grocery stores. And then your one-stop shops are like Target and Walmart. And these are great because, like it says, it's a one-stop shop. You can get a lot of other things there. But the problem is, the more time we spend in grocery stores, the more impulse buys that we buy. And so when we're in places like Target, we all know that we are going to spend a lot of money if we don't have a plan and we don't have a list. So there's nothing wrong with shopping in these places. I just would really encourage you kind of having a game plan, sticking to it, and not kind of veering from that. And then, of course, you have your bulk stores. So I kind of laugh at myself because I remember the first time I stepped foot in a Costco, and it was just so overwhelming and wonderful. And I would just run around and wanted to buy everything in the store because I just couldn't believe how, crazy of a deal it was. But the problem is, if you don't have anywhere to put it. So that was one thing I started to notice, is that, oh yeah, I don't have anywhere to store any of this food. I don't have like 2 to 3, refrigerators and an extra freezer. So you want to prioritize with bulk stores. If you pantry items, maybe we do buy some bulk meat and freeze it, or some bulk, fish and freeze it. Those are good things to get there. But yeah, just because it's a good deal doesn't mean you should buy it. Remember when I talked just a minute ago, avoid unnecessary bargains. If you don't need them, you don't need to get them. So, all right. So tip number 6. So we're actually in the store now. We've chosen a store. We're in the store. How do we shop? You really do have to be strategic with how you shop. It can be, very overwhelming. And grocery stores are kind of designed in a way that kind of leads you towards one area first. And usually that's, luckily the produce aisle. I feel like people kind of go there first. You've heard perimeter first, of course. It's interesting, I have books and I've read studies and I do things, over the years. And I think the average amount of time that someone spends in the produce section is about 5 minutes out of the entire trip, like 40 minutes that you're in there. So not a lot. And, so I think it's really important that we are prioritizing our fruits and our vegetables. So we need 5 to 9 servings of them a day. The other side of that though is I don't encourage people to go too overboard. So that's where, again, working with a dietitian, learning how, many servings of fruits and vegetables would be good for you, how to fit them in your day, what that looks like, for a week's worth of groceries. I think when we overbuy, they go bad. And so that's where, you probably heard me talk about this before, but one of the best things you can do when you get home from the grocery store and you've got a bunch of fresh produce is go ahead and prep some of it. So chop up some vegetables, get them in bowls that are in eyes view so that you can pull them out of the refrigerator and start eating on them. Because if they just kind of sit there in those drawers, we tend to not eat them as quickly and they go bad. So I've provided for you guys today one of the handouts. The Environmental Working Group puts out the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen every year. They kind of, redo that list. So, of course, as a Clean 15 sounds, it has less pesticides, and the Dirty Dozen is going to have the most. And so when you think about organic, that's kind of what I usually tell people, how to prioritize it if you're going to purchase organic. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of organic versus non-organic today because that's an entire hour-long or more presentation. But personal opinion, there's no nutritional differences between conventional and non-organic, but it is the pesticides that are, showing adverse health effects. And it's good to kind of keep that in the back of your head. But I certainly don't want people to feel like they have to walk into a grocery store and just completely spend their entire paycheck because they have to buy everything organic. So just my 2-second spiel on that. Now, once we've kind of done the fresh produce section and we kind of make our way around, we're going to hit things like meat and fish and dairy and eggs. And this is where I'm sure everyone has 1,000 questions on what type of yogurt and plant, based milk versus cow's milk, and whoa, what kind of eggs? There's so many. I'm going to go over that briefly, but I think, again, these topics are very good and great to talk to with your dietitian in person. I am giving you guys a lot of handouts today that include freezer staples, pantry staples that can help kind of steer you towards products that dietitians in my practice have personally picked out as kind of some of the healthier options out there. So hopefully that'll help a little bit. But yeah, I do encourage things like lean meats and fatty fish like salmon. You can get them frozen, which is great, maybe a little less expensive. When it comes to dairy, yogurt is it is wildly confusing. There's so many different types. I usually help teach people on how to look for added sugars and how to get Greek and look for how much protein is in there. So that's always a nice source of a good topic of education for someone when I'm, working one-on-one with them. And then eggs, we're going to cover here in just a second, all of the different types, because I do feel like that is kind of confusing. Excuse me. But yeah, so once you've kind of hit the perimeter, then we've got the frozen food section, which is, a lot. So what are some healthy items to include? Like I mentioned, I am sending you guys home with a products to look for freezer staples handout, but just to kind of throw out some of my, what's in my freezer right now. So frozen fruit, frozen avocado. I will throw, if you guys didn't realize there was frozen avocado chunks, it's great. Now you can thaw them and use them just like you would avocado, but what I like to use them for is for smoothies, just because it's a great source of healthy fat. It's easy to just throw in there and create a nice texture. There's really not a lot of flavor, so it just adds kind of a creamy texture, and you're getting a nice source of healthy fat in there. So I love having frozen avocado on hand. Steamer veggies, just for quick nights when you've run out of your fresh produce and you need a quick side. We'll have whole grain waffles on hand, especially for the kiddos. I like to have those. Cauliflower pizzas, just throwing it out there. If you're a Costco member, the Milton's cauliflower pizza is super good. So we get that a lot. Frozen fish And for some treats, there's a brand called Veggies Made Great. And I personally love their products. They're very clean. They have a lot of, as it says in the name, little hidden sources of veggies in those muffins. They're gluten-free. They've got a lot of different varieties, and they can be kind of used as a, part of your breakfast or a little sweet treat if you are desiring something sweet. So yeah, I like those. And then when we think about the middle aisle, so I usually say save this for last, only because, if we've got more of the other stuff brewing in our grocery cart, then we're not going to have as much of the processed foods that typically exist on the middle aisles. We're going to talk about labels here in just a second, but overall, less ingredients, the better. Learning how to read those food labels. Again, another hot topic in an RD office is learning how to read a food label. And then just remember, I am not demonizing middle aisles. Healthy items do exist here. So things like nuts and seeds and oils, olives, beans, tuna. I mean, there's really good things that exist on the middle aisles, but let's kind of rewind it back a few slides. We need to plan for those items so that we don't get caught in those middle aisles and we're just like, oh gosh, the bulk Dorito bag is just buy two, get three free, just kidding. I don't know that anyone would do that. But anyway, so yeah, I think just prioritizing your, your list and saving those middle aisles for last is just traditionally what I have people do. All right, so let's get into some labels here for just a second. I did send you guys home with a food label different than the one that's on the slide that gives a little bit more insight into the food label as a whole and what to look for. But this is something that we do a lot in our office. We teach people how to look at the ingredients list. What are some, shorter is better typically, but and then also we help you to understand what products are better when we hit those middle aisles. What are some better pantry staples? What are some better chips? What are some better crackers? What are some better, all those things. And I've sent you guys home also with a pantry staples products to look for, so that you can get a better feel for, again, some of the top picks the RDs have chosen to include in their own pantry and encourage for others to choose as well. But overall, if I'm seeing someone personally and we're talking about health, we're talking about management of chronic disease, weight loss, I'm really encouraging them to limit overall packaged items and understanding that we live in a world that needs convenience. But I'm just trying to help steer them towards healthier products, limit them overall, and eat more whole foods in general. But on the label itself, you're going to want to watch out for things like you want to know what the serving size is. And the serving size, as you can see here, is always up at the top. And it always tells you how many servings per container. But you want to know where to find that, because everything on that food label is representative of that specific serving size. So you're going to look for things like sodium, added sugar, saturated fat, and fiber. Those are kind of my top that I have people look at. Because these are things that we need to try to limit, except for fiber at the end. Fiber is something that I want you to get more of. People aren't getting enough. So, so those are things that I have people specifically watch out for, because they're things they don't normally look at. I think sometimes we're more interested in, well, how many carbs are in there? Which is, I get important. We kind of want to know our macro goals, something that the dietitians talk about as well. But yeah, so it's important to understand how to read those food labels when you're in the middle section of the grocery store, especially. All right, last slide here. And probably the most tricky of all things when you get into that store is unregulated and misleading terms. I mean, it is so crazy, the marketing ploys and scams that are involved with selling food, and I hate it, but people are just getting so tripped up, and that's something that we like to talk about too with everyone. But terms that are completely unregulated are all natural. So the FDA is actually working on that one to kind of have a complete definition of that. But, as it states, if you read it, natural would mean not artificial ingredients, but yet you might find all natural on something that has artificial sweeteners in it, which is completely contradictory. So all natural is very tricky. Grass-fed and pasture-raised can kind of have a couple of different meanings. I mean, you could get grass-fed beef that's made mostly with conventional grain feed, or you can get that's made with 100% pasture fed. So the thing about anything like meat and eggs, this is where I'm going to leave you with that, because I can't go down the rabbit hole of that today either. But check out your local farmers market. This is a great time of year to do that for other fresh produce and berries and other things that are in season. It's a wonderful time for you to get associated and lined up with an actual farmer to talk to them about their food. You're going to find meat and eggs at some of these farmers markets, and it's really important to kind of understand where your food is coming from. If you're going to take the time to buy that type of food, I think that's something that could be really educational. And then just to kind of go into the misleading terms here, free range, cage free. Yes, we tend to I think people get confused on what those terms mean, but basically it's talking about how the hens are kind of housed, and but they're very loose terms. I mean, for something like free range, they might be able to exit the building and be able to walk on like a small patch of grass/dirt, where you might think free range, oh, there's just roaming the town there of the grass, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. So again, more expensive does not always mean that it's necessarily healthier. But one thing that I do kind of tend to steer people towards, if they want to kind of focus on something organic, is meat and dairy. That's kind of where I lead people towards, just less growth hormones, better feed in general, and of the cows. And, just, I think the USDA organic seal is completely regulated. So that what it stands for is actually, or what it's stating there is actually true. And so I think that is really important for people to understand. Okay, so we will get to lots of questions here. I'm going to start with our, cooking demo here though, and then we'll lead into questions as people have them. Okay. So this is a really fun recipe that I came across, gosh, a while ago, and I've made it quite a few times, and it's very much enjoyed by lots of different people. It's these lemon cheesecake yogurt cups, and Skinny Taste is a website that we recommend a lot. And so I pretty much like everything that I make from them. I know I usually feature eating while I talk about them a lot, but Skinny Taste is also one that I also enjoy. So yeah, so let's get started. Okay, now, just to let you know, you do not need one of these KitchenAid mixers that I'm about to bust out. Did anyone else get a KitchenAid mixer, in their wedding registry, and they use it like once a year? Well, that's me pretty much, but I've been using it more since I've had kids, and having them is nice, but you don't need one like this. You can get just like a regular hand blender mixer. It's not a big deal. Okay, so the first thing that I did, it's already been done, but I preheated my oven to 350. So you're going to want to make sure to do that. I've also lined my cupcakes, tin here with, there's, 12 different sections. So I lined that all with the little cupcake liners, and I've sprayed that down. So that's kind of all set. So I'm going to set that over to the side until we need it. Well, actually, what I'll do first, we'll put the vanilla wafers in. Okay. So kind of brought back some of my childhood here, little vanilla wafers. So what they do is they use these little vanilla wafers as the crust at the bottom. So what you're going to do is you're just going to take a vanilla wafer. It's just a regular vanilla wafer. And I'm just going to put one at the bottom of each cupcake liner here. So And these are very light and lean. They have a nice, fresh kind of lemon taste. They're about 100-ish calories per serving, so very light. And as you see, when I kind of put it all together, it would be kind of fun to feature for, like 4th of July with the berries on top and a little dollop of the Cool Whip. All right. Okay, so any questions before I get started on the mixing of the ingredients?
Not necessarily on the mixing of ingredients.
Oh, no, not on that, but sorry, before I get to it. No, sorry.
Okay. One person did want to know if they should wash fruits and veggies with something other than water, especially things on the dirty dozen list.
That's a great question. And no, you do not. The research shows that the getting the pesticides off with water alone is just as effective as with a fruit and veggie wash. And actually, when you start to use things that aren't even, sometimes people might just use dish soap or something else, and you're actually adding other things to your food that you maybe don't even want to have. So no, just water alone is fine.
Okay, great. And you mentioned veggies made great. Where do you find that brand?
Those are over by it's right kind of near where the frozen waffles are. So kind of like the breakfast section.
Okay, so it's a frozen item.
It is frozen, yes, which is even better because you can keep it in the freezer and you just pop them in the microwave when you want to eat them. And my two favorites, because I've tried them all. They're good. But anyway, my two favorites are the chocolate. So if you want something sweet and you're a chocolate person. So, and then the blueberry, that one is so good. And I have the banana nut. And by the way, like this was a Costco fail. It's like you get the thing and then you think you're going to like it and then you don't. That's why you should vet it before you buy Costco. But they're not terrible, but the banana nut isn't as good as because we tried it in the store and it isn't as good for some reason now. It's like we try one bite, we're like, oh, that's so good. But as you have like more of them, I'm like, no, they're not as good as the Costco version variety. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of different ones out there. They even make egg ones that aren't, bread. So you can just get like frittata style. So they have those too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. All right, guys, I'm going to pull this monstrosity over really quick. And, okay, so I've got my mixer here. I got my little vanilla wafers in my muffin liners. I'm going to add some cream cheese. This is a 1/3 less fat cream cheese. All right, so I'm going to add that right in. All right. And make sure it's softened. You can leave it out if you want, or you can just pop it in the microwave to kind of soften it. Just if you're going to do the microwave route, just, do it for like 5 seconds and check it, 5 seconds and check it, and kind of do it slowly. Sugar. So we're going to add, I didn't do a 1/4 cup of sugar. I did an 1/8 cup of sugar. So I cut the sugar in half. And I felt like there was really no difference because you're using, kind of a sweetened yogurt. And so I felt like, and cheesecake can kind of be a bit more, cheesy, savory, and with a touch of sweet, and there's berries added on top. So I cut the sugar in half to 1/8 of a cup. So I'm going to add that in. And then I'm going to add in a teaspoon of just pure vanilla extract. So 1 teaspoon of that. All right. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna lock and load here. I know you guys can't see it 100%, but it's in there. You saw me put it in there. All right, is there another question while I kind of mix that up for a second?
Yes. Is there something called frozen bread? And is that healthier than regular bread?
Certain varieties of bread are frozen. Ezekiel bread, some gluten-free breads. So yes, technically anything that needs to be frozen or refrigerated bread-wise means there's less preservatives. So yeah, I even with certain breads that aren't necessarily frozen, or like Dave's Killer, for example, is one of my favorite bread varieties. If I don't put it in the refrigerator, by the time I finish a loaf, because no one else, my kids don't like it, and my husband doesn't really eat it either, so it's just kind of me, it will start to mold because it doesn't have as many preservatives. So,
Okay. And then spinach was on the dirty dozen list, someone noticed.
Yeah.
So that is fresh spinach, I presume.
Yeah, fresh spinach.
Okay.
Yep. So just washing, and I think a salad spinner is kind of fun. So you can kind of wash your greens, and then you get your little salad spinner out, and it'll dry it off. Or you just kind of do it ahead of time and kind of pat it down dry before you eat it.
Okay. And is it better to do fresh spinach than frozen? Is there any big difference?
No, I don't think. No, I definitely don't discourage frozen anything, because a lot of times it's kind of just flash frozen, and it preserves a lot of the nutrients. So I think that's something that really helps and kind of retain those nutrients. And I mean, really, when we think about convenience, they're a convenience food for people that need more fruits and vegetables. So no, I definitely don't discourage frozen.
Okay.
All right, guys, let me get back to this for just 1 second. So I'm mixing this up. I'm going to mix this up just a little bit more. So basically, you want to mix it until smooth with your electric mixer. I'm going to kind of high power it here for a second. Okay. So then I'm going to lift this up a little bit. Some of the, kind of get that off. I don't think that should fall out. Okay. So we're going to add in all the rest of the stuff. So we're going to add in a Chobani vanilla yogurt. Okay. Just one. So we're going to add that in, and it's vanilla. You could also, if you really wanted it to be extra lemony, you could do a lemon yogurt. I'm going to add in 2 egg whites. So I've already kind of separated those out. So 2 egg whites. I'm going to add in, or I'm sorry, those were the, I think that was the lemon juice. Let me go. I think I left the egg whites in the refrigerator. Hold on 1 second. Oh no, here they are. So that was 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, which looks similar for some reason to the egg whites. Anyway, so these are 2 large egg whites. So I'm adding that in. I'm going to add in a tablespoon of lemon zest. So I've already zested it, but you would take a grater, okay, and you would take a lemon. It took about almost a whole lemon, and you just kind of go over it like that, and the zest just falls into the bowl, and you use a tablespoon of that. All right, so we're going to put that in. And then the last thing that we're going to use is about a tablespoon of just flour. And you could use gluten-free, you could use whole wheat, you can use, regular. I think it doesn't matter. It's just a tablespoon. All right, so I'm going to kind of get all that in here. And we're going to get back to mixing. It does say not to over mix too much, but you want to make sure that it's, mixed in. Whoops. Okay. All right, so as that's mixing, the only thing left that we have to do is literally pour those into the muffin tins. So as you can see, I mean, it does take some measuring of ingredients, but for baking, it's really not too terribly difficult. It's kind of minimal ingredients. So I'm going to kind of stop that and get this out. Kind of remove my little whisk here. All right, I'm just going to check it really quickly here with my spatula. So here's my mixture. I'm just going to kind of, it's pretty good. There's some stuff that, gets down on the sides here that I'm just going to kind of move around. From what I can see, it looks pretty good. I mean, there's like a little bit of texture to it, but not a whole lot. Pretty smooth. All right. Okay, let me move my mixer out of the way here, and then I'll bring my muffin tin over. Does anyone have another question?
Yes. When
Okay.
a recipe calls for regular eggs, is it okay to substitute egg whites?
Yes, but I think you may have to adjust the amount. The other thing that and I don't know that off the top of my head, maybe I should. But the other thing that you can do, which is kind of cool, is if let's say you're vegan and you don't use eggs, flax seeds can be made by mixing flaxseed and water. And you just kind of whisk it up and let it sit there for a little bit. It becomes a little bit gel-like, and you can use that for an egg substitute as well. So
Okay,
a great way to add
great.
in some healthy fat too. So, okay, let me get my spoon. Here we go. Great, guys. So what I'm going to do now is you're going to fill up these cups about halfway. Okay. All right. So that's about halfway. I kind of start, well, that one I didn't. I did a little bit more. So, but yeah, just in case you run out, it's better to kind of not put as much in at the beginning. And then you can add to it if you need to. Whoops, I got a little sloppy with that one. This is just a nice healthy treat for like the end of the day. I made these for my mom's birthday. She loved them. And you can also, if you're not a lemon person, but you'd rather have more like a key lime, you can change it all up and use lime and lime zest. And even if you wanted it really limey, using a key lime Greek yogurt instead of the vanilla. All right, I'm gonna get my whisk out. I mean my spatula here for the last little bit. A little bit more to this one over here because I didn't put as much in him. Okay. All right, guys. So we've got, this is them uncooked, of course. So these go in the oven for, I'm just gonna wipe that off, about 25 minutes at 350. All right, so I'm gonna put those in. Obviously, we don't have 25 minutes, so I have some already made that I'll show you here in a second. You're gonna pull them out after 25 minutes. You're gonna let them sit there for about an hour, just to kind of cool naturally to room temperature. And then you're gonna put them in the refrigerator. And if you want to serve them that day, I would let them at least have a few hours in the refrigerator. But of course, you can have them much later. I've kept them in there for a few days. And they are petite. You can have one or two. I think two is a fine serving, a couple hundred calories. Okay, let me show you them made. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to dress them up. These are plain, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to dress them up. All right. So I've got my little, yogurt cheesecake cups here. But what I'm going to put on them is some fresh strawberries and one of my favorite whip toppings, which is called Cocoa Whip. I'm going to show you guys that. And I've featured this before, so maybe you're aware of it. But you get this just wherever you get the Cool Whip. It does have a coconut flavor, so if you don't like coconut, then you may not love it because it is made with a little coconut oil. But it is, vegan, so it's dairy-free, it's gluten-free. We stay somewhat allergy friendly here, but it isn't a must. But at the same time, I know some people just struggle with that, so I always like to point that out. I just like coconut, so I like it for that reason. So I'm going to grab a clean spoon and then kind of dress them up, and then I can answer some more questions. All right, so I have some chopped up strawberries here that I'm going to put kind of on top of each. It can kind of be generous, and it can look a little sloppy. It doesn't have to look perfect. And But they would be really pretty. Like I said, for 4th of July, you could have some blueberries or some blackberries. And then just a little dollop of this Cool Whip. Really pretty. Okay, so I've got my little, I just do like a little bit on top.
Katie, can these be frozen after baking? I know you need to
Yeah.
refrigerate them, but freezing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm
Okay.
looking at my fingers. Yes, I think that you can definitely freeze these. Some look prettier than others on my plate, but okay, so there they are, kind of dressed up. And again, you can kind of add whatever you want to as far as fruit goes to these, but I think berries are a really nice touch. You can also use, for anyone interested, for on sweeteners, if you want to not use sugar, an eighth a cup isn't a ton. And for this particular recipe, if you use an eighth a cup of sugar, it takes the sugar down to about 4.5 grams, which is not bad, for a dessert. And then you might have a little extra sugar coming from the strawberries. But you could use this particular recipe they recommended, because all sweeteners are not created equal within recipes. You may not like the way it tastes. You may not like, mostly it's taste. I feel like we all have very different taste buds when it comes to using those types of sweeteners, like stevia and I really don't like throwing out there just a brief second on sweeteners. I don't really encourage like Splenda and those types of sweeteners these days. More of your natural ones like stevia. Monk fruit is a big, kind of newer one that's being used a lot within baking. And so monk fruit is one. Then you can get, Amazon is a great place. I just feel like you can find a lot more varieties of stuff there for a little cheaper. But Target has some monk fruit sweetener there as well. And I think I would have to look at the conversion, but you could look that up, and it may even it probably tells you just on the package. I don't have one right in front of me, but if it's a 1-to-1 ratio, it might be I think it's a little less. I think it's about a fourth of what you would use, just because it may have a little bit more of a sweeter taste to it in that form. So yeah.
All right. Can you substitute honey for the sugar in this recipe, or what would you say?
You may be able to do honey or maple syrup instead. Yeah, I mean, this particular recipe just specifically recommended monk fruit, so maybe they thought that it worked well within this particular recipe. But I think that sometimes it's kind of, good to experiment with stuff like that. But I mean, I would probably go maple syrup, just easier to mix in instead of maybe honey. So, but yeah, a natural sugar would be a good thing to try to incorporate instead of more processed.
All right. Let's see. If you are using silicone cupcake liners, do you still need to spray them?
I do. I usually spray because I just feel like I don't have good luck, that always sticks. And so yeah, I mean, if you've got like brand new silicone cups that are saying, non-stick on them, you might have a good shot at it. But I think over time it kind of wears. And so I just do a little bit of spray.
Okay.
Yeah. I finished a little early today, which is not usual. Normally I'm over here like frantically trying to get everything together. So it's nice to be able to answer some questions for people.
Yes. Let's see. I'm answering some of them.
That's fine.
Can you use Splenda? What is the latest on all these artificial sweeteners?
I just think they're coming out with Splenda being no bueno. A lot of studies, a lot of research showing that it's just kind of due to the chemical nature of it, kind of linking it to, just a carcinogen. And so I really would, there's so many options out there now that are not, and so that are good alternatives other than Splenda. So I'd really kind of just try to stay away from Splenda and aspartame as much as possible. I don't think a little bit is going to hurt anybody. I'm someone that believes that, a lot of times when they do these studies, they don't take into consideration the entire picture of that person. They're kind of just looking at it from one eye's view. But I think at the same time, there's enough evidence to show that Splenda and aspartame are just really not the best alternatives at this point. And there's just other ones out there that are much better.
Okay, and one person was confused about not beating the egg whites. Is it because you don't want them to rise too much?
Yeah, so I think it's when it said to not overbeat, to not overmix. Honestly, I would think that, but they're certainly dense with the cream cheese. I don't really know why that would happen. And I've kind of not really listened to that with my mixer because my son, my 4.5-year-old, has helped me make these multiple times, and he loves doing that mixer, and he has just gone crazy with it where it says to not overbeat. And I've seen no difference personally, so I'm not really sure why she's kind of in this particular recipe encouraging you to not overmix. But no, I don't see really a difference when I don't overmix and when I do. So
okay,
I don't think it's that big of a deal.
All right, let's see. And somebody did share a link. I will publish it. That the World Health Organization has recommended not to use non-sugar sweeteners for weight loss in newly released guidelines.
Yeah, so the non-nutritive, so the termed artificial sweeteners, yes, right. Which stevia and monk fruit, they are not termed artificial. So those are going to be a little different. But yes, yeah.
All right.
Actually, yeah. Well, I know we're a few minutes early, but I hope that you guys try this one. It really is a fun one to make, and it really is a fun one to make with the kids. I feel like, if I can do it with my 4.5-year-old, I think anyone can. I have like zero patience sometimes. I'm more of that type A, like it's got to get in just right, and I've got to do it just right, and and so but he's such a big help. It's really easy just to kind of have things already portioned out and let them dump it in. It's a really fun spring/summer dessert too. So yeah, so hopefully everyone enjoys it.
Okay, and as a reminder to everyone on here, you will be receiving an email as long as you registered for the event. You will be receiving an email by the end of the week that will have the recipe, the slides, a recording of today's presentation, and all the handouts with you. So be on the lookout for that. And we appreciate everyone coming today. And Katie, thank you so much for your time. We have had some recommendations that maybe we do a session on reading food labels. So that will be a great one in the future. So stay tuned.
Yes, I love it. I hope that people start to throw out ideas on these chats, because me personally, kind of already thinking about next year. I mean, there's so many topics out there. It's really helpful to know what you guys would like to learn more about. So that is so helpful. And I love that. I love the idea of doing one on food labels. So we will 100% do that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And everyone, look forward to receiving your email that has the recording and all of this information. And we will see y'all again in June.
All right.
Have a good day.
See y'all later. Okay. Bye.
Bye.